So welcome, Carrie Lamb of Frida Fine Jewelry. Thank you so much for joining us today on the East Coast Fashion Summit. It's our honor and our privilege to have you. We're so grateful to you for being here.
That's really sweet. Thank you.
Of course. So let's start by telling everyone a little bit about your journey, where you're from, and how you decided to pursue the path of fine jewelry in this amazing fashion career.
Well, I'm from the UK and grew up there, obviously, and did my undergrad in Manchester and then my graduate training in London, which was fantastic. So actually, my journey began not with jewelry, actually, in terms of my career. It started with working with Jaeger, which is a big international fashion house in London in my early 20s, which gave me exposure into all aspects of the business, from production to marketing to designing international ranges that were sold into many different countries, buying fabrications, designing fabrics, etc. So I have a very extensive background. But the jewelry side of my journey, I think, would have started when I was really, really very young. And I was, but I was a chronic asthmatic when I was a kid. And so I spent a great deal of time with my grandmother. My mother had a very demanding career, also my father. And so I spent a lot of time with her. And as a form of therapy, probably, she would just put me in front of a sketch pad and or a box of loose beads and stones with some string, and I just found myself creating jewelry. And then when I went back to school, the little entrepreneur in me thought, oh, well, I'll just start selling these. So that's what I did. So that was really, I guess, jewelry found me in that respect, and then I picked it up later on because it really was a passion.
Yeah, that's so fun. Going back to your roots in your childhood.
Absolutely. So I loved it, and I loved the whole process of, even kids. Remember, I was only sort of six, probably 5, 6, 7, and it continued into my teenage years, actually. So it was quite an important part of my childhood.
Yeah,
I haven't thought about it for a while.
yeah. I know that you're always very generous in the community, and you're always trying to give back and do stuff like that. So how do you find the time to also, while you're running your empire, also give back to the community?
My empire. Yes. Well, I do in different ways, though, often ways that you wouldn't really notice, and I prefer to do that.
Yeah.
So it's a subliminal effect, really. Even just communicating with people, I think, and this might sound very contrite, but kindness is very underrated.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we've had complex journeys ourselves, we can impart wisdom to people without them even knowing about it. And I'm able to do that through the bespoke part of my business, especially. But in terms of charities and grassroots charities, I'm much more interested in getting involved there, where I feel that we can really make a difference. It's a small independent brand. I think we can have a small independent voice that can be heard, as opposed to being lost in this sort of, the chaos sometimes of the big charities.
Right. Yeah. It's important when you know what it's like to start from the ground up, that you support others starting from the ground up. And I love that. I think that's great. How do you take the time to find balance in your life with all of your busy schedules? I know it's crazy.
Well, I'm not sure what balance is, really. I think for me, because I love what I do, I don't consider it to be work. I mean, it's work in as much as I'm, here all day, and I'm almost trapped, if you will, in this beautiful little jewelry box that I've created. I love what I do, so it's not really work. But the balance, I suppose, for me is driving home from the city to my home in Caribou, which has been a very important part of my journey for many, many years. It's like a sanctuary, emotional and physical, I think. So even if I'm only home for a day, or if I can at most take 2 days, it's just that decompression that one feels. I don't answer the phone, I'm not online, find someone else if there's an emergency, basically. And I just like to be alone. In the old days, I had horses, so I would ride, and that would be a great form of stress release, but can't do that anymore. Bad hips. So yeah, so I use that as mental detachment, I suppose.
Yeah, that alone time that you need to
Um, yeah.
reinvigorate your, yeah, I understand that for sure. Where, yeah, where and how do people buy Frida fine jewelry? And can you speak about how you chose where you chose to be?
Where and how do they buy? Well, obviously, I have a beautiful little shop here,
Yeah.
but today the world has changed. So we're moving very aggressively online, so people can actually buy online. Although at our price point, that's not necessarily been the way. Well, hasn't been to date, although that is changing, I must say. So we've changed our advertising to attract people to actually communicate with me or to communicate with Emma directly, so that people have that, personalized encounter with us. What was the second part of your question? I've just lost.
How, how did you decide where, yeah,
Where to be? Well, again, that sort of that was decided for me really as a consequence of really a life-changing situation that I found myself in about 20 years ago. I found that I had to reinvent, well, I had to reinvent my life. The trajectory that I was on prior to 20 years ago was very different. So I reinvented and I found myself in Carrie, which really wasn't my plan. And so I was, I was handcuffed to the area in a way, which has turned out to be a blessing because I turned that initial period of my life, which was very negative, into a fantastic positive.
yeah,
So Caribou actually stimulated my location was stimulated my first collection, which obviously the Caribou collection, and then I'm right by the ocean, so the ocean followed, and then Shield. So those collections were very important to me at sort of different periods in my life. So I found myself here not by choice necessarily, but now I'm thrilled to be here on the East Coast. My business is now based in Halifax. I think Halifax is booming.
yeah.
And since COVID, prior to COVID, actually, I was contemplating moving to Toronto. Now I don't think post-COVID that's even necessary to do.
Yeah.
I think Halifax is booming in its own right. And I think that with the online presence that we're going to certainly, that we're working towards, we can be, I think anybody can be in Timbuktu, frankly, as long as you have a voice that people want to listen to.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It doesn't matter where you start. It just matters how much in you is ready to keep going and overcome those obstacles. And you've certainly done that.
Well, I've worked really hard at doing it, and it's funny how life is. It throws you a curveball, and you just have to, maybe initially it's a shocking curveball,
Yeah.
but then you realize the silver lining in that, and sometimes when you have nothing to lose, the very best is yet to happen. So
Yeah, go for it.
yeah.
So you touched on COVID. So I know it's changed everyone's life, but how has it changed your life and how you do business now?
It's interesting because everybody was in shock. It was something. When you think about the scope of it, it's a worldwide pandemic. My sister is in high fashion in London. London has been crippled by this.
Yeah.
Many people have been crippled by it. Personally, I took it as a chance to step back from a very frenetic lifestyle. I manage many different aspects of my business, not only the design and the retail front, but I have a team for production, and every day is crazy, regardless of whether I have clients or not. So it gave me a chance to step back and really reevaluate what I wanted to do going forward, and how to present our brand in this new reality. It's an overused, description really of where we are today, but it really is. It's a very new reality, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. In fact, it probably never will. So you have to really look hard at what you do. Do you have a voice? How is it relevant in this changing economy? And for us, it's definitely everybody, I think, not just for us, but for us specifically, online is this new frontier. We've always been online, but the exciting part of that for me is that I feel that finally the playing field is somewhat leveled. Because remember, we're competing, our brand is competing pretty well directly and indirectly with the big, you know, multi-million-dollar brands. So how do I compete with their advertising budgets and everything else? I can't, but how can we? We're agile enough to build a platform that will appeal to our clientele. And they're out there, and I think our time is now.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think that's so cool because right now you're right. The leveling has happened. It's never happened before where it's a really good time to get into this. And people that are used to living with a lower budget can really thrive right now.
Absolutely. It just takes imagination
Yeah.
and finding your own niche in the market. You know, I'm a big believer in, I mean, again, I'll just backtrack a second because now it's easy to start a brand. When I started, it really wasn't. I decided on my living room floor 20 years ago, this is what I'm going to do. But the tools were not available to me then that are available now. Anybody can start a brand really, and look at the resurgence of, say, Squarespace or automatic Shopify. So people can set up their own, you know, brand relatively easy. The problem with that is the market can be saturated with too many, you know, too many, you know, startups that possibly won't make it long term. But it's a creative endeavor, and go for it if you feel you have a voice.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. It's a good time. I find something that is very unique to Frida and the Frida experience is the bespoke part of your business. And I just think that is so personal and beautiful. And it really does make you stand out from everyone else. And I just wanted to say that I think that's a lovely part of your business. And maybe you could share a bit about that and why it's so important to you with our viewers.
Well, I think the bespoke aspect of my business is, and has been for the last few months, been enormous actually. Yeah. And it's the best way for me to creatively explore and showcase a client's personal aesthetic in terms of their style, in terms of, you know, whatever it is that they want to wear every day. So the bespoke process allows me to do that, and that's fascinating to me. And I think the whole bespoke aspect of any business is really great. And I think possibly stems from an appreciation of all things handmade. When I was in London, for example, doing my grad training, my head office was at Regent Street, so hop, skip, and a jump away from Mayfair. So we had on our doorstep for coffee, Bond Street, you know, Savile Row, for example. So you'd walk down Savile Row and you'd see these amazing shops where people would be, you know, the tailoring was exquisite, and you learn and you absorb. And I also remember as an art student going to the couture shows in Paris. 5 of us were lucky enough to attend, not ready to wear couture show. Yeah. So that you see the workmanship close up, you see the beautiful fabrications, and you can see how pieces are made specifically for certain clients in the houses. And that really is my greatest joy, frankly. Everything I do is custom. So I'm thinking of a client when I'm designing something, or I'm thinking of a collection. But that makes it madly exciting for me.
Yeah, and for your clients, because that's so rare. Yeah, because they're used to just walking in, buying a piece already made, but to come in and be so treasured and for you to take that time, it means a lot to your customers, and that's probably why you have so many.
More, but yes, I mean it is, and you also form a friendship, yeah, and a bond with clients when you work closely that way, because there's a trust, obviously, yeah. The trust in me, and you know, not everybody's able to do that as a designer. A lot of designers want to put you in their own box.
Right.
You have a box. This is where you're going to fit. As my own clients, I don't feel I want to fit in anybody's box. Right. I might wear something that's, you know, today I'm, you know, wearing a mixture of vintage and, you know, this and that, things that I've collected over time from different designers, and I create my own box. So I am my own brand, and I want my client to feel that she is her own brand, that when she leaves here with whatever it is that I've designed for her, It's unique to her,
Right.
and that's key for me.
So special. Yeah, so special.
Mm.
Your website is absolutely gorgeous. As soon as you click on it, you can tell Frida is a luxury brand. And I just think it's gorgeous. I know Emma, your
Yeah.
daughter, has helped a lot with that.
Yes, little munchkin that she is. Yes, she's brilliant. And it's funny because interesting journey, because when I decided to build my brand 20 years ago on my living room floor, not quite 20 years ago, but almost, and I called it Frida, people ask me all the time why Frida. So Frida means beautiful and beloved. So I dedicated it to her. She was only young then, and not that she's not now, but and I never expected her to join me in the business.
Right.
And it just happened because of the website, actually. I worked with four companies, Emma? 3 or 4 companies anyway, to try and articulate my perspective and journey through the website, because it's very important that as soon as you click on that website, you know immediately as a client, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to journey through this website. I want to travel through and explore it. I know instantly if I go on a website, the colors, bright colors, I know instantly, is it where I want to be? Does this reflect my aesthetic? So it needed to be instant, but I honestly couldn't find anyone within the business to do it. So Emma said to me, we have to do it ourselves. She designed it, she implemented it. We have fabulous photography anyway.
Yeah.
And I think it really works.
Yeah,
I
gorgeous.
love it. I love it.
Yeah. And I love that it's a family business. I love that the apple has not fallen far from the tree. I have I have 2 daughters as well. I hope they love me as much as you and Emma love each other for as long as you.
Well, I think I shared with you something off camera, but Emma is fierce in her. I mean, you have to be fierce to be in business. You
Yeah.
have to be fierce in many different respects. You have to fight for what you believe in. You have to fight to make things happen. You have to fight to get through doors and all of those things. So Emma, we're similar but yet very different. She's very fierce off camera. She's the face of the brand.
Yes.
She's amazing and beautiful and everything else. But she's really the only person who can stand up to me honestly and tell me, you know what, no.
No.
And I'll fight with her, but at the end of the day, she's probably right.
Yeah.
So it's great to have someone. She's smiling, and it's true.
Yeah. I think that's great. You need that person that's not going to constantly say yes to you,
Yes, because my friends would say, what do you think about this? What do you think? Oh, I love it. Oh, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Great. Not that I don't love them and their opinions,
Yeah.
but I'm someone who really understands the market. She has great instincts. I have good instincts too. So together, it really works it really works well. So I'm very, very blessed, very, very lucky.
Yeah, it's great. It's really cool to see you guys together.
Yeah.
How do you do your designs? Do you do more of it on paper, or do you use tech, or do you just form it in your hands? And then how do you make that from an idea in your head to a real piece that you're offering?
Right. Well, I have a great team today.
Yeah.
So to work in the fine jewelry sector, I have a phenomenal team, second to none.
Right.
We can do anything, goldsmiths, diamond setters, amazing. But the design starts for me typically with a concept, maybe when I'm driving, design a new collection or whatever, but then, or it could be a stone, it could be a gemstone around which, there's a feeling. Often, many gemstones have a palpable energy, and you can feel that. Some of my design work in the Shield series are very, very intense, and it's because of the stone, frankly. But really, my process would be to sketch. I do, a lot of sketching. I also like to build in paper, which is, I think, unique to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't start in jewelry, I started in fashion design.
Right.
Really not a lot of difference because it's color, texture, but you have to understand with jewelry, as with clothes, how do you build a fabulous tailored jacket? How do you build a beautiful ring or a beautiful cup? It's about balance, it's about texture, it's about color. You're telling a story. It's harder to tell a story in a ring than it is in a beautiful, dress or something. So it's very specific. Drawing, sketching, but building on paper. I like to draw it out on paper and try it on. And then I go from there to the tech side, if necessary, or we go straight to studio and build it without a wax, without anything. The fine jewelry, typically for clients, if I'm working for a client on a custom piece, we would usually build a render, so a computer-generated 3D image, so the client can see it in 3D. Then I build a wax from that. They try the wax on, often with the stone of choice. It might be their stone that we're recycling into a new piece. And then we go to metal.
Right.
So it's all of the above, really.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it.
Do you have any advice for aspiring designers about taking your designs from concept to reality that they could use on their jewelry fashion adventures that you kind of wish someone might have told you?
Well, I would say, I think I mentioned before, when you're embarking on a journey in the fashion jewelry world, and they're interrelated, obviously, then I think you have to really look at where your skill set lies. Look at the niche into which you can work and perfect it. There are loads of people in the jewelry world, of course, loads of jewelry designers, and not all are successful. Loads of clothing designers, not all are successful. So you have to really look at what does the market want? What can you offer the market that perhaps isn't there, or if it is there, how can you improve upon it? So I have built my model, and it's sort of grown really and evolved because it's changed a few times. But essentially, the core of it was, what do I want as a client? Now, I am my own client. I was my own client. I possibly can't afford to be my own client now. But, I was my own client. So what do I want when I go into a jewelry store? How do I want to be treated? And so that's very key for anybody starting in the business. Where's your skill set? And how can you, utilize that and make something amazing that people are going to want to buy? Because that's ultimately what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Know your client and just always be designing for them.
Be designing for them. If you're your own client, if you love it and you're wanting it and you're not finding it in the marketplace, then go with that. But understand that you have to be able to sustain yourself within that niche. How can you develop on that niche? Because if it's too narrow a niche, then maybe it's too narrow a niche and you can't expand. So look at how you can move out from your initial direction. How does that, what does that look like? I always used to work in, well, it's been 20 years for me. So I would do 10 years. In 10 years, I want to be doing X. I want to have achieved X. In another 10 years. Now I'm a little older, so now I'm looking at 5 years.
Right. But always be setting those goals and hitting those miles.
Absolutely. Always have goals. I'm not a big believer, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but business plans. You're going to need that if you're looking for funding. Even when I was looking for funding, I would, I just found them ridiculous. I had my plan in my mind and I was ready to execute. But you really have to know where you want to be and set your goal and don't deviate. And don't let people say to you, oh, really? You'll never be able to do that. If you believe you can, trust me, if you have the passion to do it, you'll do it.
Yeah. And you're going to get a lot of people along the way trying to change you, change your mind. So you need to be really sure about who you are.
You have to be really sure who you are, because even in the industry today, and I looked at moving to the Toronto market last year, and it's interesting. I'm not a follower. And I think as an entrepreneur, you can't be a follower. You have to follow your own path that makes you an entrepreneur, especially as a creative person. You have to follow your own, that little voice inside that's telling you what to do, follow it. There'll always be people that say, oh, why don't you do this? And people have said to me, why don't you build at a different price point as well? Okay, why don't I? There are lots of people doing that. I can't do that because I've built a team of craftsmen that can't work at those price points.
Right.
Still disposable jewelry or disposable clothing you have to produce offshore. I don't want to do that. I want to honor craftsmen here and artists here that can execute my vision to, you know, to the level that I want to have it executed. So
Yeah.
just decide where you want to play.
Yeah. That's really important. Like, be your own person and don't let anyone take you off that path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some pitfalls that you've learned over your amazing career that you would tell new people starting out just to absolutely avoid? Like, please do not do this.
Please do not get behind with CRA.
Very key. Pay your taxes.
I didn't even consider because I was so busy on the treadmill of survival and
Mhm.
that I didn't consider what I was doing. And everything I sold, I put right back into new products, and I built from the ground up. Um, Perhaps not do that. Perhaps, you know, take some advice. I didn't because I didn't feel I had time for
Right.
any advice. I felt I knew what I could do, and I just was going to do it no matter what. And it was a take no prisoner attitude for me. I'm not advocating that. It was my journey, and that's how I did what I did. And I was fierce.
Yeah, I can tell. Don't mess with Carrie.
Me, I was on a mission, and so yeah. So I'm not saying take that advice, but you know, be more prepared. I
Yeah.
will give you a little. This is something that you may have asked me or may not have asked me, but it just popped into my mind, so I'm going to share it. I did. I looked at going to funding many years ago to occur. Fabulous. Um, and I stood in front of the fellow that, you know, I was presenting my collection such as it was. And actually it started off was the Carrie collection, and it was going to be a lifestyle collection. So I had designed fabulous handbags, jewelry, knitted fur before anybody was doing knitted fur. So I had a friend who was a great knitter, and we bought the thread, and we did it with, you know, cashmere, locally sourced cashmere, and crazy stuff. It was absolutely gorgeous. And I presented this collection. Now, remember, I'm at the beginning of my career, and I had lived a very interesting life prior to this. And he looked at me, and I was showing him the bags and the furs. And he said, well, where are you going to sell this? How is there a market for this? And I said to him, no, I had nothing. I had access to nothing financially. And I said, what do you mean, where am I going to sell it? I said, there's a global market. I mean, I know my market. And he said, well, New Glasgow. And I said, no. I'm thinking Aspen, New York, you know, Boston, London, not necessarily New Glasgow. But, and I looked at him, I was frightened, and he said to me, and this is true, I'll quote him because it's never left my mind. He said, the closest thing that I've ever come to in terms of designer clothing is Fruit of the Loom underwear. Now, nothing wrong with Fruit of the Loom underwear, I'm sure, but it wasn't quite where I was aiming. And I looked at him and I said, I think I'm in the wrong place. I think I'm presenting to the wrong person. But he did offer me one piece of advice, and that was, you're doing too much. Focus on one aspect of your brands and do that. Because I was doing everything.
Right.
It was actually very, very good advice. And that's why I really focused then on the jewelry, as opposed to the lifestyle brand. But I will say that I'm ready now to go back into the lifestyle.
Nice. That's great advice. And that's great advice no matter what business you're in. Just to hone your one major thing that you're very great at, get that amazing, and then start moving into other things.
Exactly. But the decision was made easy for me because it's what could I control?
Right.
I could control the jewelry because I was making it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I could control it. I didn't need, and that was the core of how I started this, because I had lost control in a former life, and the benefits of that were not great. the results of that were not great. So this time around, I'm not losing control. So I could control the jewelry because I was building myself, and then it grew from there. And now I have a team. So, you know, again, it's know where you need to be. And that was good advice from him, actually.
Mm. Yeah, something that didn't work really did work.
I've gone back to it. I've gone full circle.
Yeah.
Revisiting the things that I made then are still incredibly relevant. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So on the other side, what are some things you would tell new designers to absolutely make sure they start doing immediately? I know, keep up with the CRA, but
Maybe the CRA is watching them. Yeah, what would I tell them when they're starting? You know, I'll be brutally honest, and this possibly is not what you want to hear, but there's nobody harder on themselves than I am, and most entrepreneurs. I think you have to be. You have to ask yourself, am I good enough? Do I have a voice that needs to be heard? And I'm not saying that I don't want that to sound egotistical in any way. I just mean you have to really think about it, because there are lots of people that, you know, would come into me and say, oh, I'm a jewelry designer. And I'm thinking, okay, you have to be able to produce something that is good enough to sustain you. And the only way it's going to do that is if other people want to purchase it. You have to really think, you know, is this my passion? Because it's going to take everything that you have as a young designer, everything and more. You're not going to be able to go out with friends necessarily like everybody else, because it's going to take hard work, really hard work. So you have to be prepared for that. It comes with tremendous highs and tremendous lows. So you have to know that before you embark on this journey. And if you're young enough, frankly, you're young enough to change it up and do other things. I didn't have the luxury of time. So my journey was different. I did not have that luxury. You know, I put my career on hold for too long of a time, and then choice was gone. So I had to be really super focused. No room for error. Not necessarily so for a young designer. You can change it up.
yeah, and it's important that people understand that it is such a time commitment. You're probably not going to have time for anything else.
You're a designer too, and it's you know, my daughter was, you know, 10, 12 when I really started thinking, okay, I'm going to have to reinvent and do something amazing. And it took a lot of time. I couldn't go to all the basketball games, you know, because I really was on that trajectory. So there's huge sacrifice with that. It's not like working 9 to 5 where there's a salary, so there's a safety net. There's really no safety net when you're working on your own, you know. So you have to be prepared to live on the edge, and everything that, you know, comes along with that.
Living on the edge. So where we can you give us maybe a sense of the personalities of your clients and what they're interested and why they're drawn to your work?
Well, I would say, if I'm thinking about who the Frida client is, and that's an interesting question, really, because the Frida client, regardless of age, and I'm going to say this because I deal with a lot of, you know, young people. I design engagement rings. A lot of people don't realize I do that, and I can build at any level, from really 1,500, 2,000 for, you know, for a beautiful engagement ring, to wherever you wish to be. So I'm encountering people of every age, but the Frida, the person that comes to me, wants an experience. They want something that's unique. They don't want to go to, you know, what do I say, you know, large retailers. They want personal connection with the person or the artist that's actually designing the piece, and they want to be involved in that process. So I think all of my clients, regardless of age, want experience, they want connection, they want something beautiful, and they want it to reflect them. They don't necessarily want to be promoting a brand outwardly, because I feel that they are their own brand. And I think that's really very important. So all of my clients, I would say, are all very comfortable in their skin. They know who they are as women, and I encourage them. You know, they are their own brands. I don't need to be stamped with somebody else's.
Yeah, so highly confident, know who you are, want something personal.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
embrace. And you don't. And I would also say, we're not. We're not trend followers. We're all. Most of my clients around my age, my friends, we're all very well aware of fashion. We all love fashion, but we're not slaves to something.
Right.
We come to it as independents. We pick and choose. I put, vintage together. I put things together that, frankly, that I bought when I was in, as a graduate trainee with Jaeger. Some of the designers that had worked for them, I still wear their work.
Mhm.
40 years
Right.
ago.
Quality.
Actually, this sweater, I think, is probably 40 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
You put things together that are fun and that are meaningful to you, and do your own thing. And that's the important thing. Be who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, you want these pieces to last. You want them to be intergenerational. You want them to be around forever. And that's why you make things with such high quality. You want people to keep them, down and down the generation list. Um,
Absolutely.
what makes you, what inspires you and what helps you stay inspired as a creator?
Well, when I look back on my signature collections, they've been inspired by certain points along my career. So Caribou, I started with Caribou. It was very important. So it celebrated the rawness of where I was, and then Ocean, because I'm near the ocean. So it was a very reflective time for me in my journey creatively. So that's reflective in the Ocean series. And then Shields, which is a very powerful collection for me, which is all about women's empowerment. And so my pieces are all intentional. Whether the client wants to know the story behind them or not is really not important. What's important to me as a designer is that those intentional thoughts are put into the piece. And I feel that my pieces have an energy, some more than most actually, especially within Shield, and certain stones that I work with have a palpable energy. Probably gone off track on your question now, but
That's okay.
so my work is really reflective of the stages, my life's journey as a creative person in the last 20 years. And now with Frida Fine Jewellery, I really design whatever I want to do. I don't lock myself into a box. And of course with my clients, it's really, I'm designing for them. But I'm choosing stones that have amazing qualities and amazing energies. And I have great clients too that are very inspirational. But inspiration is not a problem.
That's good.
I just need a bigger market. That's the internet.
I know you're all about empowering women, and this entire journey you're on is you empowering yourself. And now you're giving that gift to other women. And I just think it's so incredible. So what do you want your pieces to mean to your clients when they buy them?
Well, again, I think that if a client is buying Shield series very specifically, I generally talk about the story behind them, behind the pieces. So I have a cuff called the shackle cuff, and when I designed it, many of my friends thought that was offensive. I mean, shackle, why would you call it? It's brutal. But I think art has to stimulate conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Pieces, and I build very many versions of it. And really, my hope is that at some point, that particular piece will be a platform to make change. So it will be a piece that I'll be able to speak about, donate. I've donated various pieces for charity. But the story behind, I hope, is empowering for women, because it's not about I'm wearing the shackle cuff because I'm shackled. It's showing that you are showing solidarity for women around the world who are. And so the percentage of proceeds from shackle cuff will go to women's shelters, so that there's education. With education comes choice. you know, and I think back to my life, I made a huge mistake by putting something that I fought dearly for, my career, which was really my focus throughout my whole life. And I put it on hold to support someone else's and build, you know, very successful businesses. But I didn't follow my passion during that time. And then it was, then it was taken away. So interestingly enough, something out of something dreadful came something amazing. So I'm in my power, I'm following my passion, and I feel that if people do that, you can't help but be successful. Whatever success looks like, if that answers your question. But.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's incredible. What is up next for Frida Fine Jewellery? You gave a hint.
Well, I gave a hint. I'm not going to get. My daughter told me not to give too much away.
Yes.
I'm very excited about it. Actually, really excited. The most excited I've been in a very long time, to be honest, because I see enormous potential for Frida. We at last, conceivably, are on an equal playing field, possibly not equal, but on a level playing field with the big brands. Because my competition, let's be honest, some of the big international jewelry houses, we all know the names, and I'm up against hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of advertising budgets. I don't have that. I'm a small independent. But I can create a platform online just as they do. And it's interesting to me to see that how they've struggled with finding an audience now, which is very different than it used to be. And Emma and I can sit in a coffee shop having a coffee, and I can see the behind the scenes of boardroom meetings at some of the big brands, and they're having the same conversations we are. But we're small enough to navigate change. And that's maybe an advantage of being small and nimble. Possibly agile is a better word. But we're agile enough and we're savvy enough to be in tune with what's going on in the world to make those necessary changes. So I see this as an extraordinarily exciting time for us.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. COVID especially has really opened up the world to smaller brands to shine, because people are looking at that local market. People want to support the smaller guy right now, and it's really our time to shine, I think.
It's our time to shine. So I think if you're, again, if you have this is the time to do it. And I think, excuse me, as I said, I look now 5 years down the road, and in 5 years' time, perhaps there'll be a platform, perhaps will be lifestyle.
Exactly.
And I think it's exciting to do because there are so many designers that are not seen. And I think collaborations with small independents, especially here in Canada, is very vital. And I'd love to do some collaborations. I mean, we're using this today to talk about how we can grow. I think if we actually thought about it, so I could collaborate with another bespoke designer, perhaps. A couple of people in Toronto I'd like to collaborate with, a couple of, actually Marie St. Pierre, if you're listening. And we talked at CAFRA a couple of years about doing something together. But I think it's exciting to celebrate Canadian artists, but Canadian artists that perhaps are built in Canada.
Mm.
Really, that's important. And would I like to collaborate with MAC Cosmetics? Sure. Because, and why? Because you also have to look at how big brands have marketed. They're using celebrity endorsement. Great. But why? I look at my clients and think, I have some amazing clients, amazing CEOs of fabulous companies. These are great women. I'm going to use these women to showcase my product. Why not? Why does it have to be a celebrity that really is there being paid to endorse a product? Let's be creative and do things a little unexpectedly.
Yeah, and that again, just your thought there and your process there, that's also supporting local and real people.
Real people. We
Yeah.
are real people. Celebrities are real people, but people are using them to sell their products, and it has worked. It doesn't drive me to buy a product at all because I'm not that person. So I'm far more excited about a fabulously successful woman who buys my brand and celebrating her for all her accomplishments. That's very important. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes.
Yeah.
So I have to look to Canada and really embrace the talent that we have here. There's a lot of talent.
Yeah, we are very talented here, and to get that out across the world would be amazing.
I think if we work together, we could do that.
Yeah.
And I think collaborating, with is a way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, I know people think that, like, for example, when we started this summit, people were like, who are you going to talk to? Well, I have found that everyone I spoke with was fantastic and absolutely open and absolutely welcoming and so kind and generous like yourself. And I just really want to thank you, Carrie, for doing this and for being here with us today, because it really does mean a lot. And to have you among all of these people, we're kind of collaborating right now. So
And I thank you for that. It's a terrifying experience for me to be in front of this camera. And so I really was reluctant to do it, but I'm thrilled to have done it actually. There was nothing like this when I started. So if this can help somebody decide to go into the industry or against going into the industry, then it's a success.
yeah, absolutely.
Much success in your adventures, and hopefully when we can all travel again, we can get together and really discuss this thought of collaborating further.
Yeah, I would love that very much. There's a lot of opportunity here if we reach out and grab it. You never know where it'll take us.
Absolutely. Yeah, just it's living on the edge. It's an adventure.
The entrepreneur life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so the main takeaways I think are to absolutely know yourself and be strong in who you are. Never let people shake you from that voice in your head. I think that that's one important thing that you've said today that I'm certainly going to keep with me. I love that. I think that's extremely important. And I just want to thank you for being on our East Coast Summit today. And I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. Carrie, you're fantastic.
But thank you so much for inviting me, and I look forward to seeing everybody else's segments. It's been a pleasure, so thank you. So stay well, stay safe, and stay creative.
Thank you. I can't wait to see what's next for Frida Fine Jewelry. Thank you, Carrie. Have a wonderful week.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.